G'day folks, Mark here again. I've got I suppose an update. It's a little bit more of, I think we're actually getting to a point where we've got a plan. Now, this is about the firearms bans, the firearms regulations, the confiscation of firearms, what the government is doing versus the legal gun owners of Western Australia. And ultimately, I'm going to step that up to this is about Australia, and we all need to be awakened to that. I've mentioned, I suppose I've been through the process for those people who want to know what this is all about, that sort of stuff, the people who have just realised something is actually happening. There is lots of stuff online. I have a playlist, I'll put a link down below, that goes through this process. This has actually been coming up to 3 years of this process. So I'm not going to go into more details right now, other than to say we're in a situation where the government and the police force, so elected and unelected members of our civil servants and our government and police, like I said, have been acting to the largest degree outside of the law, outside of the parliamentary process, all sorts of stuff that have happened to push something through with no actual discussion or no actual real input from the community to make laws that suit themselves. The legislation enforcers writing the legislation. Very extraordinary, scary, extraordinarily undemocratic processes where we're at, but that's where we're at. And I suppose in all the time that we've had to think about things and do things and be part of doing things, that side of things, to the largest degree, our pro-gun shooting organisations, as much as they have tried things and they have suggested things and they have been directing things, ultimately their results are poor. Let's say that they're not good. We haven't actually improved anything through any of our organisations. Not to say they haven't tried, and I don't want to create division on that side of things, but we are not in a better place through anything that has happened there. We're in the final hours of very serious things happening. And obviously a lot of effectively gun confiscations have already happened. There's a lot more to come. There is no compensation. There is all sorts of, pretty scary laws coming. And I'm not going to go further into that other than what came obvious to me at least, and I think like-minded people, is there is a couple of things that really, two fairly simple things that we should be doing as the population of Western Australia, for all of us actually, but particularly the gun owners. And like I said, this transfers into the whole of Australia, but let's just talk about the gun owners of Western Australia to start off with. One was to find a way to combine, stand together and work out a way to work together so we become a large enough body to influence things. That was designed, there's the idea of it being in a political process, so to get behind a political party. My honest belief is that ultimately, with enough weight in other senses behind it, may turn into something, but ultimately it still went down to politicians' promises rather than actual actions. And it also was talking about our legislative system or our political system holding itself to account on some form or other, which, let's be honest, it's beyond that in lots of other fashions than just this. But as a large body of people which are worth something, yes, as voters, but also worth listening to for the media, for everyone to listen to. The large body is really important. My thoughts are going past gun owners and into four-wheel drives owners, into nature park walkers, into all the other things that are going on, from the fishing, farming, the national parks, the closing off beaches, and combining everyone, be a large group of people would be worthwhile. That hasn't really happened at this moment, but that is an important thing. And the other thing which became obvious is the only way we're going to get anywhere with our political system and our civil servants that are actually acting outside of their charter, the political process, the federal laws, the constitutional, all sorts of things that they're outside of, and we are all, as our shooting organisations are all saying, oh, they shouldn't be able to do this, they shouldn't be able to do this, but what in our system actually forces it for them to do the right thing? Is it just because they do the right thing, because they just are good people? Well, let's be honest about this. No, what forces them to do the right thing are really two things. Lots of money that they will go to, they have their hands out for all the time, I suppose votes, yes, that's three things. Votes are relevant to it. That tends to be attached to money in this day and age as well. But otherwise, legal consequences. Legal consequences. So the only actual real action we had, short of the going back to the savages or going to physical protests, which I shouldn't say as savages, that there is obviously protesting which would help this process as well if it was done properly. But legal action, legal consequences. That is what needed to happen. So all of our shooting organisations stepped away from that process. I think some investigated a little bit, but largely there's a little bit too much of, I don't know if it's vested interest, if it's concern about the pressure they put. I don't know why they haven't really gone there. And I'm not here to judge that side of things. They haven't. There is one person, and I think there's some other ones I hear whispers about, I haven't really seen it done at any level, but one person that by herself, and that's Kate over at Lady Liberty, that actually was doing something. That started a fundraiser, which is back in January, that has managed to get enough funds to do things. It has managed, at that stage, managed to engage people, which, and if you go over and check her channel out, I'll put a link down below, is talking about what they've been through. And they have spent the money to get a letter of advice, which then it sounds like at least they have some angles of attack. Of course, politics, or more so the legal system and the legal process, is a game of poker. You don't show your hand too early. That's not effective. So we're not going to find out those details, and I think that will be fairly closely guarded, but it does sound like there's a crack of light at the end of this dark tunnel. But she's also, because she's raised enough money, managed to put forward, get the King's Council, which is part of the people that she's actually engaged, which is our top lawyer, the top level of lawyers in the land, from what I understand. But a guy supposedly got a pretty good track record, has actually run class actions and things before, but has written a letter to our police commissioner to say, hold your horses, boyo. There's some stuff coming, and I would strongly advise you not to go forward in putting forward the new legislation or new regulations that have been put forward. So as for that, I don't know the rest of the details of it. Kate is going to explain things. She's a young lady who's actually doing a lot and risking a lot and putting her neck out there to do this. So there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel there. I've got some more light at the end of the tunnel there that goes into that group that I talked about, of us getting together as a body. I have been trying to find a way to get people to move forward. I'd suggest the only organisation that combined everyone that I could really see, that everyone could be involved with, was the WA Shooters Union or the National Shooters Union. And I think some people have started to go and support them, and that's helping. But ultimately, my real thoughts were a standalone, a new, fresh organisation which is for gun shooters, and particularly at this moment, to combine us as much as we can and get as much numbers as we can for this particular fight. Just like the government's playbook, never let an incident, a disaster, I've forgotten the right term, but never let a situation of crisis or a crisis go by without using it to your best interest. The same way the playbook's been running for a long time. And yet us on this side of the fence, we just wait around to get battered by the next one and see what happens. Well, right now we have a crisis. Right now we have a really serious crisis, and this crisis is way more serious than most people seem to understand. There's too many people that are willingly complying out of the think if they comply harder, then they'll be protected, and then they no doubt want to protect their community and fashions, but they will comply and we'll just do this, not understanding that by doing that you're actually saying that, okay, what the government did is okay, what the police did is okay. So this is a crisis that is going to get a lot worse than this unless we change things, so use it to our advantage. So a fresh organisation that is born of this crisis is my thoughts on the way forward. Now, but my thoughts are not just my thoughts. That's certainly come from me thinking about it for a long time. But when I talk to people, there's more and more people that agree with this side of things, but what's the process forward? Well, eventually, and this is out of, I didn't know enough, I haven't followed through enough, I've known of this person, but I didn't realise how similar their thoughts were, her thoughts were. This is Louise Kingston. She's an MP, she's an independent MP. I think at this moment, I don't think she's going to be, but she is certainly someone that has the same passions, has the same thoughts, has a whole heap of a different or a broader or maybe more fine-tuned understanding of our political process, but very much on board to doing this sort of thing. More so, in the same sort of thoughts, my thoughts on going forward with this sort of thing. We're going to organise an organisation or build an organisation. It should be from our grassroots. It should be from our, as we all know, our wonderful shooting community, full of doctors, lawyers, the rich, the poor, the young, the old, the disabled, the athletes, everybody. We're going to mix in everybody. Amongst all that, we have very smart people. Some will be university, some will be trade smart people, some will just be smart people, or some will be battered by the legal system and have been through the process and understand the process better. There's all sorts of knowledge we got out there. That's where this group should come from. But it shouldn't just come from there at just that side of things. It should also be built in a form where it has a proper constitution, has a proper set of bylaws, has structure that makes it better than in this case, the enemy. Better than the other side. And I'm talking about things where we should be able to build an organisation, and this is, I'm going to give you my feelings on it. The organisation should be built on the organisation's feelings, not my person's, not one person's feeling, not Louise's feelings. We can try and help and set up a structure, but that structure should work to what the shooters want. Things like I believe it needs to set up with all the right bits and pieces to make it a fully legal and official organisation right from the get-go. It should be set up with rules like, I think it needs to be a financial organisation in some sense or other, so you end up where people are on the board or on the committee, but actually can get paid to either assist with the amount of the work they put in or their full-time jobs. I don't know, we'll let the people go with that, but we need to do this properly. But it also should be that there's no more than 4-year terms for any of these people. We can't have people who end up benefiting long-term or corrupted, or that sort of stuff. We're all humans, it's all possible. So we end up where it is constantly doing the right bits and pieces. All the bits and pieces of running a business, be it not for profit, be it for profit, I'd suggest as a not-for-profit organisation, but my feelings is it should grow into something that can run pro-gun advertising campaigns. So we're talking millions of dollars a year that goes through this process, so it needs to be set up properly. Also to be able to run, it is so great that Kate has done what she's doing, the legal side of things. I don't understand when we have industry in the way of major importers, we have major organisations and basically a lot of money coming in, some being funded by the government in some places, in other places being funded by the individuals, but organisations all over this country that have a lot of money, that they make a lot of money, they deal a lot of money in this process. Now, I've got nothing against them making lots of money, but it's about time you put your money where your mouth is, or put mouth where your money is, or where it comes from. So be part of an organisation that can help fight this. So I believe there's really good things to come from that. Louise, it has got a structure set up where we can email in, which I'll put the email down below. She's also got a set of guidelines as what she thinks as a process to try and fix the immediate process and immediate steps forward. But in speaking to Louise, what she really is trying to do is set up a starting point, work out a starting point. So that means that we can then organise probably a preliminary or temporary group to start off with, to start to run things, as to whether those people are able or the right ones. We want the best of the best is the truth of it, to try and run this, to do as much as we can. As to whether those people can give 4 years or they can only give 1 month or whatever it is, we'll work into what it is. But the building blocks to start this process. I think it's super valuable. We're 2025, so it's not that you have to drive to Perth or drive to Albany or drive wherever it is. You can be wherever. You can be the other side of the country. And if you're a valuable member of this side of things and you can contribute your time, your knowledge, your information, your strategies, that sort of stuff, then that's what needs to be at this stage. So it's not for the likes of me or the likes of Louise or any individual to provide any more than a little bit of this process. We are a large community. We should look at it that way. So on that note, I want to digress a little bit, but look below. There is an email. You can email to that and use, and I encourage people to step up in more than just, if there becomes a financial way to support this as well. I know people have already financially supported Kate. I would keep that that's part of what is probably going to need more if it turns into more. But if there is a financial way, then yes, finance will help with this sort of process. I don't even know where that path is yet, but I would keep that in mind. But more what I'm asking people to stand up to is to be part of this. We need your input. We need you to sit on a committee, sit on a board, be part of the structure, be part of designing the structure. That's what's important here. But I'll go on to the next bit. The whole logic, as we know, as to what the normal way this game is played, what the police or what the government does to control the people, it's called divide and conquer. Now we all know that. Well, if you don't, you should know that. Divide and conquer. Divide us and then you conquer us as individuals. So you stand together or you fall divided, or whatever that proper term is. We use one against the other. But most people presume that they divide us. That's not how it works. We divide us. We hear it all the time. We divide us, and then they just put a little bit of fuel in here, a little bit of offer here, a little bit of stuff here. They manipulate our divisions against us, and that's how they get what they want. So we have to wake up to that. That's us doing that. So in that concept, there's a few things I want to say. We've already seen it. We saw it when, over 2 years ago, when the large caliber BANS came in Western Australia. And I certainly was one of the people that started doing videos, started talking in front of groups, started saying bits and pieces. And it was a case of, oh yeah. I'm saying, listen, they're after all the guns. This is a lot bigger than this. Got to stop and realize what's actually happening, what's afoot. And then most people said, yeah, but it's not affecting me. And then the new regulations was sort of rumoured, that sort of stuff, that this is going to happen. Oh yeah, but it's not affecting me. It wasn't until the last days for most people where all of a sudden there was letters saying, well, that firearm there, that's going to have to do something, or this is affecting it. The moment, that was the time when people woke up, which is, okay, our community is not combined enough in the way of our information, that sort of stuff. It was more to the point of this same sort of thing. They just pick on one little group, and then people say, oh, well, it's your group that did the problem. So, well, that's it, that's not me. Not understanding that was the beginning of the divide and conquer. And obviously it's been happening for a lot earlier than that. And it happened last time around in 1996. The divide and conquer happened there. But now we're moving into a different level. When I hear shooting groups that spoke out against Kate, and it happened prior to that in other fashions, but that was a very specific one that you guys all got to see. Well, if you didn't, yes, that's what happened. Some of the shooting groups spoke out, pro-gun shooting, pro-gun organisations or gun organisations spoke out about what she was doing. Now I've got to tell you, that to me is a really big red flag. But I would say, I would like to give everyone the choice. And this isn't me giving them an ultimatum. This should be you giving them an ultimatum. If they're going to speak against us, I'd ask what their motives are. Now, maybe this is personal pride, maybe this is megalomaniac control, maybe their motives aren't the same as yours. Maybe they're not as anti what's actually happening as you are. Don't care. I don't know what the maybe is. What I would say from this point forward, or if they're doing that in front of you, maybe you ask them why. Maybe you say, what's the deal here? Because the simple thing, we've got to combine and we've got to fight on all fronts. So if they can change their tune, if they can adjust their situation, then all good. Let's do that. I believe we all should be, not to join with this group, should be as individuals. We don't want groups that already have their power joining this sort of thing, but all the members for sure. And we don't want to stop you being a member, or it's not a we thing. I'm talking we as the community. We as the community should want, I believe we should want, everybody, every firearms owner at least. If not, it should grow into bigger than that. It should grow into four-wheel drive owners, it should drive into the fishery, should drive into everywhere. We get a large community like that. That's my dream. and what I would hope we can turn into a community, whether it's Free Australia or it's a new Bill of Rights or it's whatever it is it turns into, where we want control back of our government. But right now we've got the crisis of firearms, so the firearm owners should do it. So all our organisations should be on board with that. I would be prepared to push it into where, you know, our suppliers, the importers and things like that, if you're not a part of that, whose side are you on? Let's all be a part of it. So open the door to everyone, but if there are people pushing against it, let's hold them to account, because that doesn't make any sense when it comes to the big picture. But this also moves into another division that where I'm actually seeing, I'm actually hearing, is as much as there's a lot of people on the other side of the country that were awake at the beginning of how bad this was, and then some were more, and they've gradually been waking up. There's also the other ones that are saying, well, our state would never do that. No, it's just you weak West Australians that did that. Or it's just our people, as much as what you went through, we would never go through it because our police commissioners like that, or because our government's like that. Wake up. I can't stand listening to that sort of stuff. I need to paint a little picture for you and explain some things a little bit more when it comes to that sort of foolish statement. WA, yes, we're in a bad situation. Is it because we're all wonderful people and we just got completely tricked? No, we've got our useless here as well. And we've got our people who are asleep and all that sort of stuff, absolutely. If you're telling me your state doesn't have any of that, I'd probably hold you to that one, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. We've all got them. But West Australia, we had what I would consider the perfect storm. Out of COVID, we got a premier who was very much about other things, but hiding in there. A lot of people got scared and got fooled into doing silly things, or things that aren't really best for Free Australia or Free Western Australia, but it happened all over Australia. Western Australia is a different spot. It's a large spot, big area, but the government, both federal and state, make a lot of money out of selling our minerals and selling our gas overseas. So there's a lot of stuff put in place that was protecting the people, which was actually protecting the money. That's what they were really up to. A lot of weird things happened through that process, but also during that process, Mark McGowan incentivized, set up to start off with a process of putting police and ADF, so ex-police people and Australian Defence Force people, in all the key positions, going right up to the Governor General. So he was there, the Police Commissioner, the Governor General, the Commissioner, I think there's one other entity is involved there, which basically meant the checks and balances in Western Australia went to the police force. There were no checks and balances. So then they started breaking the rules. Now some of these rules were parliamentary rules, some of these were federal laws. They started breaking the rules, and no one's holding them into account. No one's challenging them legally, no one's holding account, and our system wasn't working because it was set up this way. So that's why we got to this place. Now, while this is happening, every year, our heads of these departments in every police group in every state in the country were having annual meetings to go through and strategize about what they're up to. I don't know what happened. I wasn't on the ground or wasn't listening to any of that sort of stuff, but I guarantee you this setup meant that WA could push further into things and make more things happen. And the WA people and the WA shooters, okay, yes, some weren't aware, like there still are people that aren't aware now, but largely have had no control. We had the largest ever e-petition, got ignored. We had very large letters submitted to the minister, which they're supposed to reply back to. Ignored. No, they all look to the same. I'll just ignore it. So breaking parliamentary rules, breaking their protocols, because there was no one holding to account. Set up by a premier. The other bit is set up by the premier. What I know is that he, with doing a lot of those horrible things that put the woken up West Australians through the ringer, there were life threats. There were threats or suggestion of threats that made him concerned, which sicked him or got his police minister to get onto and start gun bans in that process there out of personal protection. Now, were those sort of threats would have happened? Would we condone them in any fashion? No whatsoever. But you put that mix into the place and we're in that situation. So, okay, you want to blame us for that? That's fairly harsh. But let's ignore the blaming and pointing fingers, and I want to put you in a different place. Right now, we're just about to get to the point where this legislation is coming through. These new gun regulations is all coming through and going to be here. And even before it's enacted, what happens in any one of your states if you happen to have an incident, a serious crisis, a moment that happens, which we know has happened in Australia before. Now, this may be completely organic, and it might not be completely organic. But if it does happen, you've got police and politicians that can point at our regulations, and 50 to 60 to 70 to 80% of your population, which are not gun owners, are going to say, well, look what they've done, we can do that too. Do you really think you can pull that up if they've got the right sort of crisis to work with? That's probably the worst case scenario, but wake up. This is coming everywhere, regardless of what you think your state is or regardless of what you think your people are. This is being set up and it has been orchestrated. Are they the smartest people in the world that do this? No, not by any means. But as a mass, we've been behaving as the dumbest. We've been behaving as the sheep. So if we wake up and understand this, what I'm trying to encourage you is that West Australia is the place to take the fight on. All Australia should take the fight on here in any fashion you can. Because if we can turn this around, and even if they get these regs through at this moment, if we can fight it and push it back and get it to a place and bring accountability to our police force, to our government over here in any real and meaningful sense, then that sends a warning to the police and the police, well, not the police ministers, the police departments that have exactly the same ambitions for your state as they do for this. If you think they don't, oh no they don't, yes, there's members of your police force that think exactly the same as these guys over here. So there's a lot more details I can go into, but I'm pleading with you to wake up. Be involved if you can. I truly believe we want the best of the best. As to what this group turns into, I don't know. I have high hopes for how far it can go. Whether it just turns into, it could, as a large group and a financial group, turn into a lobbying mechanism, turn into a legal mechanism, turn into a propaganda or pro-advertising mechanism. It even can turn into a political mechanism. All those things, in a way, a mechanism, a political party, it could have offshoots of that. Whether it is 6 people that sit down and talk together from different groups, or it's 36 people with different chapters in different states, all that sort of stuff, it can turn into a lot. But this is a starting point. This is something we can develop. We need to understand this is as serious as it is. Even the people who are trying to comply right now in Western Australia, you comply to this, there is literally 10-fold worse coming if you comply to this. It's as simple as that. I'm not saying break the law. I am saying be part of the fight to push it back. Anyway, Louise Kingston's contact below, the link to Lady Liberty. So Kate is down below. See what she's doing. Keep your ear to the ground. Start the conversation. Share the video. Not for growing my channel. Not about that whatsoever. For your gun rights and actually ultimately for a free Australia. Anyway, guys, that's what I got today. I hope you stayed with me, and I hope it resonates with you. Thank you very much for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.